Welcome back, Focus Learners. Let's jump right into today's explainer, because we have got a fantastic masterclass in visual storytelling to dissect. Today, we're looking at the exact anatomy of a single, highly intense cinematic scene, a merchant vessel under siege. We're going to break down exactly how specific words and visual cues are layered together to create a palpable, terrifying reality without saying a single word. So, if you love understanding the mechanics of how scenes are constructed to grip your attention, you are in the exact right place. Listen to this description and really try to picture it in your mind's eye. A dramatic, high-action cinematic scene of a large merchant vessel stranded in choppy, dark gray ocean waters, with thick black smoke billowing out from its hull into a cloudy, overcast sky. Distant naval warships are visible on the horizon. Realistic fire effects, intense atmosphere, photorealistic rendering, camera shaking slightly to mimic handheld news footage. Just wow. Reading that cold open quote literally drops you right into the sensory immersion of the moment. I mean, you can practically smell the smoke and feel the movement of the water.
Okay, let's dive into this. Layer 1. The stranded merchant vessel. Starting right from the center of the action, the text focuses on a large merchant vessel stranded in choppy, dark gray ocean waters. Notice the deliberate contrast they establish here. A merchant vessel is typically this massive, powerful machine of global commerce, right? It's designed specifically to cross oceans and weather brutal storms. Yet here, it's completely neutralized. It is stranded. That single word immediately strips away the vessel's power, rendering this giant behemoth entirely helpless against its environment.
And let's look a little closer at that environment. The text specifically calls for choppy, dark gray ocean waters. This isn't just pretty background scenery. This is highly deliberate environmental design. It establishes immediate hostility and deep isolation. You see, the choppiness implies a constant, unsettling lack of stability, while the dark gray strips all the warmth, safety, and hope right out of the color palette. It dictates a very specific mood of claustrophobia and physical danger, right from the absolute beginning of the scene.
Moving on to Layer 2. Fire, smoke, and sky.
So now we're zooming out a bit, and the text describes thick, black smoke billowing out from its hull into a cloudy, overcast sky. Think about the spatial dynamics at play here. The overcast sky is incredibly important because it acts almost like a visual ceiling. It presses down on the scene, trapping that thick, billowing black smoke closer to the surface of the water. And that just amplifies this intense, suffocating atmosphere. There's literally no blue sky to offer any visual relief.
And this brilliantly illustrates how visual elements physically stack on top of each other to create visceral devastation. You don't just have fire happening in isolation. You have realistic fire effects feeding thick black smoke, which is then capped and pushed back down by a cloudy, overcast sky. It's a compound effect. Each element feeds the next, ensuring we, the viewers, feel the oppressive, inescapable weight of the disaster.
Layer 3. Distant warships on the horizon.
We're pulling our focus all the way back to the horizon line now, where the text introduces a brand new dynamic. Distant naval warships are visible on the horizon. This is a massive game changer for our understanding of the scene. In just 8 words, the entire context completely transforms. What initially seemed like, a terrible environmental disaster or a tragic accidental fire is suddenly recontextualized as a siege. It elevates the stakes from a maritime accident to a geopolitical or military incident. The merchant vessel isn't just burning, it is quite possibly under attack.
So, what does this all mean? What exact role do these distant warships play? Well, the text doesn't explicitly tell us, and that narrative ambiguity is entirely by design. Are these warships a rescue party speeding in to save the stranded crew? Or are they the aggressors who caused the fire in the first place? They just sit there ominously on the horizon, forcing us to guess, and consequently keeping us locked right into the tension.
Layer 4. The handheld camera effect. Stepping completely behind the lens for a second, the source explicitly instructs the camera shaking slightly to mimic handheld news footage. This is such a specific directorial choice. The camera shake is a technique used specifically to mimic documentary-style realism and inject a chaotic, unpredictable energy into the frame. By demanding this handheld look, the creator brings us directly into the danger zone. You aren't just observing a pristine static painting from afar, you're standing on the deck of a nearby boat, holding a camera, trying desperately to keep your balance in those choppy waters.
Now, what's really interesting about this slide is the deliberate collision of 2 completely different visual styles within the exact same description. On one hand, the text asks for a dramatic, high-action cinematic scene, which implies something highly produced, stylized, and clearly fictional. But then it immediately counters that with handheld news footage, which is gritty, unpolished, and raw. This brilliant merging of polished cinematic fiction with gritty news reality is what gives the scene its maximum gut-wrenching impact. Finally, Layer 5, crafting the intense atmosphere. To synthesize all the layers we've just discussed, the brief explicitly demands photorealistic rendering alongside an intense atmosphere. This is where the whole shebang comes together. The call for absolute photorealism is the glue holding this entire vision intact. I mean, you can have a great concept of a burning ship and distant warships, but if it doesn't look completely real down to the very last pixel, the illusion shatters. The photorealism is what makes that intense atmosphere actually believable and truly terrifying for the viewer.
So the crucial point is how methodically this prompt constructs its narrative. It is literally an exact 4-step recipe for building perfect high-action tension. Step 1, establish the central victim, the stranded vessel. Step 2, layer on immediate environmental hostility with the fire, the black smoke, and the dark waters. Step 3, add complex narrative ambiguity by placing those naval warships on the horizon. And finally, Step 4, frame the entire thing with the gritty, unpolished realism of a handheld camera so the audience feels like they are right there in the mess.
Which leaves us with a profound final thought to ponder as we wrap up today's explainer. How does realistic visual rendering actually alter our emotional reaction to fictional high-action scenarios? When a crafted scene perfectly mimics the chaotic, terrifying footage we might see on the evening news, where does the line blur between our entertainment and our genuine fight-or-flight response? It's an absolutely fascinating intersection of news, reality, and cinematic art. Thank you so much for joining me for this breakdown, and remember, keep looking closely at the details. See you next time.